Okay, so this will be the last video that is an introduction to Galatians, and the next week we will actually begin the chapters. So this is where things get really complicated. Paul's preaching caused some of the Gentiles in Galatia, some of these God-fearing Gentiles, to fall in love with Jesus, right? So they begin to attach themselves to some of the small groups of Jewish people who follow Jesus. Let me back up. So within the Jewish community of Galatia, there were Jews who followed Jesus, who believed that he was Messiah. They did not make up a majority of the community of faith there. They did not make up a majority of the Jewish community, but they were part of the Jewish community. And when these Gentiles start coming to faith in Jesus, they start participating in the life of these smaller community groups, these Jewish followers of Jesus. And many of them began to really value their participation in this community. What happens next is what's complicated. They start attending the synagogues believing that, or they start attending the synagogue believing that they're going to be incorporated fully into life of the synagogue because they've been fully incorporated into these smaller groups. And what they discover is that they can't fully participate. They're welcomed, they're loved. You can even hear some of the non-Christian Jews say, listen, we are so glad that falling in love with Jesus has led you to Israel's God. But if you want to be a full participant, if you want to be a full member of the synagogue, you have to convert to Judaism. And in fact, these Jewish followers of Jesus would make great sponsors. They can help you become Jewish. And these Gentiles think that's a great idea. They think, okay, if that's what it means to be a follower of Jesus, that we've got to become Jewish, that's fantastic. When Paul finds out that their intent is to become Jewish, he's beside himself. And he says, you have absolutely misunderstood what it means to be Christian. If you've received Jesus, if you've received the Holy Spirit, then you are now full members of the covenant community. You do not have to become Jewish. Now, Paul now has raised a lot of confusion because Paul himself is a Torah observant Jew, and these Gentiles just want what Paul and these other followers of Jesus have. They just want to be like them. But Paul's explanation is that Jesus has made it possible for Jew and Gentile to stand together as equals in the covenant community. And that if these Gentiles convert to Judaism, they are undermining the message of Jesus. So let me just give you the bedrock ideas of the book of Galatians. I'm turning to my notes. You can probably see me doing that. So we're going to dig into these ideas in a bigger way as we walk through Galatians, but here are the big ideas of Galatians. First, Jesus is enough. If these new Christians convert to Judaism, it will indicate that they don't think that Jesus is enough. It will be saying essentially that Jesus isn't sufficient, he's not enough. Surrendering to Jesus might be a good step, but something more is needed. The Protestant reformers were correct to point out that when we add anything else to the gospel, we distort and even potentially destroy it. That includes even Torah observance. If we think that there's something else that you have to do in order to be saved, in order to be a part of the covenant community, then we are saying that Jesus is not enough. E. Stanley Jones is one of my heroes. He probably is second only to Paul in his missionary outreach. He was a missionary in Pakistan, in India, and in big parts of Asia. And when he was first sent over there by the Methodist Church, when the Methodist Church came to check on his work, they were actually pretty disturbed. E. Stanley Jones had established a number of Jesus-following communities, but they didn't look anything at all like Methodist churches back home in America. And they were actually quite upset at E. Stanley Jones. They said, "You didn't start Methodist churches. You didn't turn these people into evangelical Protestants." And E. Stanley Jones said, "That wasn't my goal. My goal was to introduce Buddhists and Sikhs and Hindus and Muslims to Jesus and to help them form their lives around him as Lord. I did not come over here to make American Methodists. I didn't come over here to make Wesleyans. I came over here to introduce people to Jesus." But this is a radical idea. It is still a radical idea. We almost always want to attach our cultural heritage to our Christian faith. And so we expect when people convert to Christianity that they're going to become Republicans or Democrats, or they're going to become, white Anglo-Americans, or they're going to become whatever it is that we think is the additional piece that is needed. But Jesus is sufficient. Second, you and I really need Jesus. The Bible tells us that humanity was created for the purpose of living in a right relationship with God. But sin has ruptured that relationship. And the whole world, including good Torah-observant Jews and good Protestant Americans and good Methodists, we are sinners in need of redemption. Jesus is God's radical solution to the radical problem of sin and death. And so Galatians is going to bring us to the radical gospel. The radical gospel is that the human race is desperately lost, and Jesus is the only sufficient answer, and he is more than enough.